You're good to go. You're supposed to have a line. So, yeah, all folks online. All right, good evening. My name is Rodney Washington. I'm a member of the Cannabis Task Force. In the absence of our chair, I will lead this committee this evening. So again, welcome to everyone. This is October's Cannabis Task Force. We'll start off with the preamble. Welcome. MCB4 has a hybrid policy that can be found on our website. Board members are expected to attend meetings in person unless they have a disability and or extraordinary circumstance. Excused members and members of the public will still be able to participate virtually. Members who are joining via Zoom must leave their cameras on. This meeting is being streamlined on our YouTube channel and a transcript is being recorded. For those members, for those attendees joining us for the first time, sort of describe the outline of the evening. What will happen, we'll have our applicants present. Committee members will ask questions. We will then open it up to the public, probably some questions back and forth, and then we will finalize with the committee, the task members talking and making a decision of how we move forward. Okay, so we'll do some introductions. Again, my name is Rodney Washington, a member task force. And you, young guy?
Jesse Bodine, District Manager, Community Board 4.
Andrew Miller, member of the committee.
Wendy Gonzalez, member of the committee.
Alan Russell, member of the desk group.
Tina Nelson, member.
Okay, so I think we're ready. Sure, first applicant.
You guys want to sit there? That's fine. Yeah.
There's the stand or sit?
No, you can sit. It's fine.
Thanks, man. So just by way of background, so you don't know everybody who's here. My name is Andrew Cooper. I'm actually an attorney. I run a practice group at a firm called Falcon Rockport and Bergman. I run their cannabis and psychedelic practice. I was a trial lawyer for over 30 years, handling mainly healthcare and intellectual property matters. I moved to the cannabis space about five and a half years ago, on the tip of when we saw that legalization was going to happen. I do a lot of different things. I do a lot of work pro bono. I teach cannabis law class at Oxford Law School. I work with not-for-profits moving legacy to legal market. We also do a lot of work in the space and around the space. And I am fortunate enough to actually introduce Taryn Cooper, who happens to also be my youngest son. He's worked with me. He made the move, though he can talk for himself. He was an architecture major, decided to work as a paralegal while he figured things out, and he worked with me. And part of the move into cannabis space was with him. We worked together for 5 years. He's a regulatory consultant now. He does work for our firm, but he's also hired by other people in this space to make sure that they don't cross the wrong lines and they do everything in a compliant fashion. I say that and I'll turn it over to him because he's got his own voice and I spent too much time speaking over him. I'm not going to do that anymore. So,
Thank you. And thanks for having us here at this task force meeting. My name is Taryn Cooper. As you mentioned, I spent most of my adult life as a regulatory consultant working in the adult use cannabis industry. I was working somewhere close prior to legalization here, as well as New Jersey, in advance of legalization here in New York. And then upon legalization back in 2021, it became pretty much my full-time job.
So sure, Alan, can you just, I'm trying to stir the speaker down.
Go ahead. And so I spent my time working around the regulations, learning them as best as I could, and helping others to understand the regulations. So I worked on a variety of license applications at the outset, some of these being pro bono for the card applicants, conditional adult use retail dispensary applicants, who you may know were the first dispensary round to pop up, targeting those who were most affected by the war on drugs. And since that time, I've worked with operators through compliance, navigating general business compliance and operations, as well as compliance with the Office of Cannabis Management and related operations. It was around the time that I was working on various applications for other licensees, some again pro bono, but that I decided myself to apply. I've always been interested in the plant. I mainly came to the space from the medicinal side. I saw certain treatment, certain side effects, if you will, that were often untreated by traditional medicines. And that was how I came to the space initially, with my own medical issues and nausea that I could not seem to find another way around. And so I hope to bring this adult use dispensary here to the community. I'm incredibly focused on being as non-intrusive to the surrounding community as possible, including limiting what's visible from the exterior of the premises. And I'm happy to, and I encourage any questions about our operations as we move forward to help ease any concerns that there may be with our business coming to your community, or hopefully coming to your community. And so I believe that is about the roundup of myself. And I can open up for questions.
Just, and one more point, we came here, although we invited to attend by Zoom. The reason I do that, and just so you know, my background, I've been at over 50 community board meetings, and thank you, Jesse, for being most responsive. And I say that, no, 5 boroughs, 55 meetings, I've gone from watching fist fights in Glendale to being in an auditorium in Bay Ridge and having people throw stuff at us. So I've seen it all, or I lead to believe I've seen it all. But I like to be collaborative. It's the way we treat every relationship. We want to meet people who are committed to helping this community. You have a big responsibility just by doing what you do. So we think it was important for us to at least see you and be able to talk to you in person. So thank you for having us.
Questions?
I have a couple of questions. I'm curious, you mentioned moving to California, so what is your connection to this particular community and why this location?
Yeah, absolutely. So the only connection to California was through my work, and the fact that California legalized long in advance of New York. So while I was working in the state regulated cannabis industry, it was in California while there was no industry here in New York. I'm born and raised in New York. I have always saw Chelsea as the beacon of Manhattan. It's been one of the places that I've always come to in Manhattan, Chelsea Market, walking the High Line, that has always sort of felt like home to me. And so it was in searching throughout the state when we were originally searching for locations. We didn't have too much of a preference in terms of general area, except for Chelsea. So I looked specifically throughout Chelsea. I went through various properties. I combed through in terms of compliance with these properties. As you may know, there's various schools around Chelsea, Manhattan, the World School. So it was that initial looking at Chelsea that made me want to identify a spot on 10th Ave, ideally, just for foot traffic and visibility, and also in terms of access to the surrounding community. And it was that we found this spot at 317 10th Avenue, and identified it and worked with a landlord to submit it for consideration of the office.
Have you spoken to anyone in the community or any of your neighbors?
Yeah, we've spoken to some of our neighbors, just the surrounding businesses around 10th Ave. To be truthful, I have not done the outreach that I hope to. And this is mainly due to the fact that I'm still waiting to hear from the Office of Cannabis Management related to the actual approval of our site. So I did want to confirm at least that we were going to be here prior to doing a significant outreach, where beyond just contacting the block associations and our immediate neighbors, but a full outreach, not only to the surrounding businesses, but to the surrounding residents in Chelsea, and also with you guys, of course, to better understand how to not intrude on the community.
We've spoken to people, we've been at the site 15, 20 times. We've spoken to everybody who would be willing to listen to us. You know, people are definitely not engaging. They're walking, they have a mission, they're going somewhere. But there were we spoke to, I know people at different companies. So we've been in the area. We've spoken to business owners, but we haven't spoken to that many. Normally we would canvass more significantly, and we plan to do that either way. We just have been and as you probably know, the rules which govern the compliance issues have been complicated. Now, we're tasked with understanding them, so we do. By understanding them, it doesn't make it better, it makes it worse, because we don't understand how they could get things so wrong so often. That being said, I'm not being critical, because to be critical means you have to be willing to accept responsibility of that job and have solutions. It's a hard job, and I respect that, but generally speaking, we do speak to the community, we speak to the neighborhood. We hope to hear back, we hope to go to other meetings. And the reason we do that is because the only way for us to know what's important to the community is to hear from them. And I say that and it's a significant point, because people who live here, live across the street, God bless, live around the corner, are the ones who say, well, I think you might change your hours. I think you might wanna, and we listen. We don't generally our model, because we work with a lot of people, we don't ever show visible product from the street. It's just, we keep an open floor. We want people not to be scared. We understand the impact of unregulated shops. In fact, I believe we know there are always unregulated shops in every community. So we understand why people are very concerned. It's one of the big reasons people are like, well, they can't really readily distinguish between the legal market and the illegal. Because we've seen this emergence of a market, people assume if it's open, it stays open. How could it not be legal? Why would they shut it down? So we come here and try to help people understand how we're gonna operate. Big medicinal focus, because we think that because of the way the adult use market emerged, the medical patients actually get left behind. There's not as many products, there's not a big selection, there's nowhere near as much support. So we do that because we understand at least what we think the community wants. We believe we understand at least what we hope they believe or want, but we need to hear from everybody here and other people in the community to really crystallize whatever the plan is gonna be. We have general ideas because we've done this before. We have stores that we operate. We have clients that are operating and that we still work with, both on compliance, human resources, controller, CFO, retail ops, purchasing, stuff like that. So we're in the market, and we've been working in the space since before the beginning.
Just a point of clarification that, and I confirmed this with you today, they were sent the normal list that we always provide. You did reach out to those folks.
Yes,
Did you receive any feedback from
I
any?
did not receive any feedback.
Okay, but you sent it to the list that we sent?
Yes.
I sent you. Okay, so they did do that.
We would never not, only because honestly, the only way we can understand.
We understand. I just want to make sure that
Yeah.
the folks aren't here.
Sure.
We send that list to every applicant, and sometimes we have applicants that send it out the day before the meeting. Sometimes they have applicants who send it out the day they get it, and so it just matters. And what I think Tina was asking was about the outreach.
And to your credit.
That's what our outreach.
And to your credit, I do work with community boards and helping them design their protocol, and to your credit. You guys did a great job. No, the questions, the whole protocol that you've established is welcome, because sometimes when people don't do anything, they don't understand their rights or responsibilities, it's harder to have an effective meeting. Which like I said, we saw great, so.
Hi, thanks for the intro. Thanks for the compliments. I did check out your website. It's a thing you had to do before, from what I could see, so be confident about the background. Who's actually gonna be managing the store?
That would be.
So I don't know if I might have missed it, but in your intro, have you managed stores or just been on?
I've worked, I worked a couple of years, in retail, not directly in terms of management, but I did have a somewhat, oversight, capacity in my role. It was just a retail wholesale market. But so not particularly, but I do plan and I will become a manager, at another store or two prior to, taking over, at this one. So we have relationships worked out with other dispensaries around the city who I plan to start with, to have better hands-on experience prior to me actually starting to manage at this store.
Thank you.
We do also have a consulting side. It's not clear, it's the common culture, and we do operate other dispensaries. Terry has worked in that capacity. He's actually done more work on the managing side than he's acknowledging, but I think because he's not in a full-time role. His plan has always been to take that role prior to managing his own store. So we expect that that's gonna happen. Once again, we're waiting for approval. So, you you learn not to get, too comfortable with any site. Because even ones that are compliant become non-compliant, so.
So I have a few questions. So for me, I'm having trouble reconciling the illegal tenant that was there versus you guys.
Yeah.
So, well, not to penalize you, but I don't see why that the landlord benefit from having a legal cannabis store, now a legal store. The legal store was there for a couple of years.
Yeah, we hear that all the time,
Yeah,
and we understand it. All I can say is, we don't wanna be punished because we're trying to do something better. We look around the community, the entire city, and they're actually walking here. Right on 8th, we saw an illegal store. I mean, it's, so, and we've worked with the sheriff. I speak to Sheriff Miranda all the time. I speak to NYPD all the time. The fact of the matter is, they claim to not have had the power. They do have the power now. I think they always had the power. When you build a regulated market, it doesn't make everything okay unless you follow the regulations. So, and I've had this conversation with the former chair, with Tremaine Wright. I think it was convenient, a convenient excuse. They weren't included. Our goal is to shut illegal stores down too. The only way you're gonna control the illegal, unregulated, illicit market is by putting a regulated market there that can compete. But yes, I understand, I've heard that before. I've heard stories about the illegal store drawing crime, creating crime, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, having deliveries. And I appreciate that. It's never gonna be there again if we get that spot. That's all I can say. But as far as the landlord, you know what, we're learning that some of the landlords that are now in the regulated space come from the unregulated space. They were doing it claiming ignorance. We didn't know what they were doing, and we all can probably agree that that's not, it can't be true. We know every landlord knows exactly what's going on. But we respect it. We fought that fight because people, like you said, well, how do we distinguish? We're licensed, we're regulated, we follow the rules. The appearance is gonna be as we talk about, no product on the floor. I don't wanna glass the windows, I don't wanna make it look like we're hiding something. We're gonna control the hours, we're not gonna have to worry about adding a criminal element. We do understand it's a small space, as you probably already know. It's about as small as you can possibly build a dispensary.
right.
But, you know, because of how restrictive the marketplace is, based on all the other criteria, it was a site that we really wanted, and we've been working really hard to try to secure it.
Also, in terms of distinguishing ourselves, in addition to being a licensed and having legal tested product, I think in terms of the day-to-day experience, it's also gonna be the education component, actually helping people to understand that we're legal and licensed, and also helping them to understand the plan and navigate. So it's not just people looking to get high, looking to get the most, you know, the highest THC concentration. It's more about helping them to find what they may need or what they may be seeking. So I think that it's important there as well. And as Andrew mentioned, just in terms of reducing the illicit market generally, the introduction.
Sure, any thoughts about being so close to the park?
Yeah, I did notice the park there. I don't expect that we'll even really be distinguishable in terms of what we are from the park. I did take a walk over there. And I think also combined with our approach of being fairly discreet, should reduce any unwanted attention from the park and passersby.
We'd like to say that you're not gonna know that we're a dispensary until you're looking, and, you know, you're standing in front of us.
Anything next door to a wine store, right?
Mhm.
That one store is correct next door. That wasn't by design or choice. You know, we've had this fight. We go to community board meetings, there's 15 or 16 liquor licenses or renewals and 1 cannabis. We put the cannabis in the end. They run through the liquor licenses, approve everybody, and then we spend 3 hours talking to people. And you know what? I appreciate that opportunity because I, you know, as an educator, somebody who's committed to learning the history, I like the opportunity to have a conversation with people about the plant and about the market. So.
Sure, I couldn't tell from the security plan, will there be a security guard at the door or not?
Yeah, we've been a little bit back and forth in terms of a full-time, security guard at the door, and we're open to feedback on that. We did imagine that the relatively limited space, it may not be conducive at all times. But we're willing, to hear feedback on that, and if we believe it to be a sticking point with the community, we're open to it. But I don't know that in most times, that it will be, you know.
We've done an analysis for two other community boards. And the analysis basically involved whether there's a preference for armed security guards or not. So we are very, very involved. We do a lot of studies, a lot of research. We want it to be safe. We want to put a security guard there. Our concern is the space is so limited, it's so small, like, I work with companies, for example, Diesel. You may not know, he's like the preeminent security person, built his own company. His staff, they're all literally 6'7", 350 pounds. If you look at the site, like, if I put somebody inside, it's gonna have an impact, but we wanted to talk to you about what it is you wanted. I'm happy to put a full-time security guard. That's not an issue. We've done that. We do that normally. We definitely do not go armed, and there's a lot of reasons for that, and I'm happy to talk about them if you're interested. The reason we're hesitant is because we don't want to commit to anything without hearing from the community. If you feel like that's important, then we'll sign an affidavit and agree to it.
I personally don't have a thought. I've seen both of them, 10th Avenue, I think it's Gotham, yeah, 18th and 10th Avenue.
Yes.
They have a security guard, but then on 8th Avenue near, the newest one that just opened, they do not, so I mean, it's just really outside. So those are the questions, those are my questions. Anybody else?
I think I only had one question I just had, just because it's changed recently. My understanding is when I looked at you guys is on the map, you currently are not in your enough, your distance or your sighting distances out of the scope for schools and houses of worship. But I also know there's been a recent change, and then there's been an injunction on that recent change. Can you speak to that?
Yeah.
And just confirm to everybody here publicly whether the injunction continues or doesn't continue? What is the status of your
I'm
situation?
happy to, because I was also involved in that.
Okay, great.
And it's our job. So originally, the way they built the regulations and the guidance they gave us, the date we use is March 11, 2024, because that's when they formalized this guidance about how to determine compliance. They did effectively 3 or 4 thick pieces when it comes to determining whether you're in a compliant location. One, you had to be at least 1,000 feet from another dispensary. Now, there's a way to get around that. It's called a public convenience and advantage waiver.
Yes.
And they changed the rules on that too. By the way, get ready for it, because now the new rules limit it to 500 feet max. So you can't be closer than 500 feet when the new rules get effective. You cannot affect more than one retailer. So if the 2 people are affected, you're not eligible. So that's another big change. And there was the third piece. Oh yeah, the retailer that's affected had to have been in business for 9 months. The other rules relate to houses of worship and schools. Houses of worship, 200 feet and same road, exclusively used as a church. The same thing with schools, 500 feet and same road, exclusive use. That's what they applied until about a month and a half ago. And they said we were doing it wrong. The guidance we provided related to guidance for municipalities such as Long Island, Nassau, Suffolk, or Westchester, because we wanted them to understand when they built their own time, place, and manner restrictions, they had to work within these confines. They couldn't change certain things about calculating the distance, for example. They couldn't change it and say we wanted 2,000 feet between retailers unless they were at their population density was under a certain number or over a certain number. Come a month and a half ago, we got it wrong, and we were doing it illegally. Without getting into the history of the law and why they had to support it, they were supported in that position. Fast forward lawsuit, Jorge Vasquez brought a case on behalf of 6 retailers, including Conbud. They decided to resolve the issue. They were denied a TRO initially. They then worked a settlement. They delayed the preliminary injunction hearing and came up with a joint stipulation, which the Attorney General on behalf of the Office of Cannabis Management and the Cannabis Control Board agreed to, along with the plaintiff's counsel. Petitioner was an Article 78. And what they did was they agreed to go back to the original distancing rules. At least until February 15th, 2026. Now, why is that important? Because when they made the change, they did a couple of things. One, they said that there's no longer this exclusive usage. Gone. They said there's no longer the same road requirement. Gone. And they also said that with regard to the 1,000 feet, you don't measure it door to door. You measure it property line to property line, which ended up constricting the space and eliminating basically 80% of both the proximity protected applicants and open retail stores. So they were everybody from the governor to the legislature to the industry trying to figure out how to solve it. I'm not passing comment on this stipulation that was signed, because I do have comments. But what they did was they agreed to go back to the way they originally calculated the rules. So as with regard to this site, the site is close to that pre-K that's on 28th. But it's no longer same road and it's not exclusively used. So that's why this site is compliant now. It was, then it wasn't, and now it isn't. But we are conscious of our neighbors, which is one of the reasons why you're never going to see anything that can't prevent people from walking by. We can try to make sure that we remember no neons, no signage, is very small, kind of obscurely. I mean, you can't really, plus, warning aside, we have a tree. You can barely see the sign. So I do appreciate that, and hopefully that'll help. Although it really doesn't help because it just makes things more complicated. But that's why you're seeing the change, and that's what the change involved. It changed the way you calculate 1,000 feet. It changed the exclusive use requirement or limitation, and it changed the same road.
And something like Avenue School, which is on 10th Avenue, just a couple blocks.
Yes, over 500 feet,
Over
regardless of
500
the metrics. Oh, no matter what the measurement is, yeah, we, that wouldn't have conflicted or disqualified us either way.
Right.
303 10th Avenue, is it my building? When they tried to, now that was affected because they were like 501.
Right.
But then when they changed it back, it was like 4 somethings and they was out.
Got it.
Is there question to anyone here who knows? Is there legislation forthcoming to address any of this, or would it all be?
They believe so.
Yeah, so great point. The first we talked about was with the legislators who were involved in building MRTA, the Marijuana Regulation and Taxation Act. The problem with them, and they want to legislate, ultimately they may, and that's kind of the plan, but they're not in session until January. So what perpetuated the lawsuit and the resolution was, we have people who literally got proximity protection, locked in on the leases, started building out their sites that were told, you're no longer compliant, you can't continue, we're never going to approve you. You also have retailers that are open and operating that we said, we're not going to renew you. So regardless of your opinion on the market, regardless of your opinion about the plan, if from a business perspective, from a damage perspective, this was catastrophic. People, I mean, this site's not going to require that kind of work, but there are people who spent $2-3 million building out their site. Now, whether you think that's a valuable investment or not, the fact is people were, there was an expectation. Nobody knew there was a chance that we would be told that the site we just locked in and have a guarantor obligated for 2 years and then a good guy guarantee. We're talking about millions of dollars. So that's what they did as this interim fix, but the legislature ultimately will probably be tasked with figuring out a way to solve this issue.
So it's punted and hoping that the state legislature fixes it before the deadline on the punt ends.
Well, we got a window, right? So they extended, before this happened, because of what was going on, they extended license expiration dates. So now everybody thought, for example, the cars were all coming to their expiration points from July, starting in July. And now with all this, uncertainty, they decided just to fix everybody's expiration date who had an active license to December 31st, 2026. So now the stipulation that was enjoining the change in distancing rule, that expires February 15th, 2026. Yeah, I exactly. Well, that's what people ask me questions and I have to give them answers.
No.
So,
I'm not making a face at you.
No, you can make a face. But imagine when clients come to me and say, well, how do I do this? And I'm like, well, today, you can do this.
We do have a number of folks online. You can open up. Yeah, if there's any folks online who would like to ask a question or voice a concern or anything, please just raise your virtual hand and we can bring you over. Give everybody 30 seconds. Oh, there we go. Bringing you over now, Phyllis.
Good evening. My name is Phyllis Waisman, and I am a member of the Neighbors of 300 West 21st, 22nd, and 23rd Streets Block Association. And the applicant who came to this location before, a while ago, I attended that meeting, and I still have the concern about the park being across the street. That park is very heavily used, and my concern is that even though your storefront may be small, who says down the road that the tree in front of it won't die from lack of care, and then everybody can see your sign whether you want them to or not from across the street. So my concern is there any other location that is feasible for you to use other than the one across the street from this heavily used park?
I have
Thank you.
searched pretty, and thank you for your question, Phyllis. I have searched pretty thoroughly. As I mentioned, I identified Chelsea and I combed through Chelsea, both in terms of actual listings, as well as just walking around Chelsea, searching through properties, looking at every property, seeing what was vacant and trying to track down as many landlords as possible. This appears to be just about, or at least it was at the time of my search, the only compliant site. There was one other one on 27th, on West 27th, off of 10th Avenue, which may have worked, which was rendered non-compliant and which I'm not entirely sure if it will be considered compliant in the future. So I unfortunately have not found anything close to what you're talking about in terms of another viable site. It's also further complicated by the World School, which takes up a pretty large section of the block. And even if you were to go just by the doors, carves out a pretty significant margin beyond just the 500 feet distancing rules. If you calculate from the actual closest doors, it takes up a pretty significant section of Chelsea. So I have searched and I have not found anything similar.
Do you happen to have a property?
I would ask that if you do get approval of the site, that you at least take care of the tree and water the tree so that nothing happens to it, and at least the signage would be blocked.
I can agree to that. I'm happy to keep the tree healthy.
We're
Okay.
fans of all plants. We would obviously never let the tree die.
Thank you.
Thanks, Phyllis.
Thank you, Phyllis.
Okay,
That's it? Looks like it.
okay, cast members' thoughts. What I'll say, I think you did an excellent job. Again, my concern, hesitation would be with this landlord. But again, I came in with the thought to see how you would, and I think you've done an excellent job. That you all may not remember, but we had problems with the same landlord for Death Ave, the restaurant and bar. He tried to bypass the committee to do something with the liquor license a few months ago. So again, that's why, again, I say
I will add one point because it's in line with your question. This property wasn't marketed. This property wasn't on the market as available for rent. There was a sign in the door.
Right.
But we contacted the broker. The landlord originally didn't want to rent a cannabis because of his prior experience. We had to explain to them how we were planning to operate. And so I don't want you to think he was searching for another cannabis tenant. It wasn't what happened.
Sure.
In fact, we harassed him asking him if he would make the site available to us, to be perfectly honest, because we looked and looked and looked and searched everywhere. And by the way, it's not exclusive to Chelsea. This is an issue we have in the entire state almost, although the 5 boroughs are most difficult. Nassau and Suffolk are impossible because all the Nassau opted out. Westchester, similar to Nassau and Suffolk, which is you have a lot of opt-outs. The state is almost 70% opted out entirely. What happened was New York City as a whole wasn't given an option. And I know community boards have issues, and I work with them and talk to them about things they can do and issues they can raise. And they're going to legislature too, trying to get some restrictions, not because they're unhappy with the way the rules are built, but because they want the legislature to be conscious of things like you've raised. Even though you're compliant, is this the right spot? Now, we've had other spots that, you know, we're compliant, but we're clearly in a much worse position.
So what I'll also say is I actually think it's a pretty good spot because there's nothing across the street. It's the back of the post office. It's adjacent to the park. It's not directly in front of the park. You have the traffic going up to Hudson Yards, so you will have business. Again, that'll be up to you guys and how you thought.
Robbie, since you're familiar with it,
Mhm.
the one concern that was brought up was the park.
Yeah,
So she didn't say why in this particular park that would be a problem.
I think it's a big part, but I think, so remember, the last one we had was 303 10th Avenue, which was directly across from the park. Meaning you walk out, you're in the park. This one's a block down and then and I think you could come out the door and look adjacent to the corner of the park. Yeah, but it's not, it's close to the park, but it's not as close.
Wherever you go in that park, because of the angle, you can't see the sign of the store. It's not visible, even with the street down. It's just because of the angle, you can't see. And that's assuming you go into the closest corner of the park. And the park's a pretty big park, so.
And it's a track, that's the end of, that's where the track and the baseball, softball fields are on the end.
Yeah.
Sorry, please.
Yeah, I've noticed mostly sports there. I see a lot. I haven't seen, I'm obviously
kids part
cautious,
is-
but I haven't seen.
The kids part is up in the middle of 28.
Yeah, I see mostly
But you
people
pick-
playing recreational sports there, soccer, so.
Sort of looks like on Google Maps.
Yeah, so. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think I generally, your sentiments, this does really underline like how difficult it is to find. I mean, the rules were never good for Manhattan, but yeah, I think maybe Manhattan is. You can't make rules that make sense for the state, but also.
Well, Queens and Brooklyn actually could be worse, because what you see in Queens and Brooklyn is you see churches and schools in strip malls. In like trailers that are built. So, you know, and the other thing they did is they did not grandfather the program, so that if you're looking for a site, like in Rosedale, there's a diner. And I know it because I grew up there. And they put a church there a year ago. So now all the area in that neighborhood that was compliant, the church comes in even after the MRS is built, and it renders other spots non-compliant. So that's the other challenge you have.
Oh, it's not just like, okay, that's
Yeah,
surprising.
yes, well, one of the, yes,
Used to like land use where everything is grandfathered.
that's exactly my point. Thank you for saying that.
But yeah,
I feel like we're getting close.
Yeah.
yeah, but I keep on going roughly, I think this makes sense, the location. It's very hard to be nowhere near a park or a school or anything like that in Manhattan, but I think the small site is behind the tree. You'd have to be looking for it, and you know, hopefully kids are not, but if you're legitimate, adult customers can find you. And I think with the landlord, it maybe not our favorite landlord in the city, but yeah, like there really are not, there's not another available site in this area.
Well, there was a retail site next to it, but they weren't interested. The one they just, in the building they just built. Yeah.
Unless there's any other questions or comments, I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Easy enough.
Alright.
Thank you. If you do have any other questions, if you have our contact information, please reach out.
Yeah.
We will be back in touch if we do get approved, just to have another conversation, because.
Yeah, feel free to
use that list like going forward,
Yeah.
there's always BCC people though, or you don't want.
Yeah.
You're the
Yeah,
first on lease, right? You're waiting, you were waiting?
Yeah, we submitted an optional lease, so once we get our approval, we'll.
We have the term sheet, so, you know, it's not gonna be complicated, everything else is agreed.
So to be clear with you guys, what's gonna happen is this committee has made a recommendation, as you know, you've been to community boards before. Made a recommendation to approve, that recommendation of approval to turn into a letter. That's gonna be signed by us, that'll be signed by you guys. But it first has to go before the full board, that's at the first Wednesday of the month. Next
Okay.
month, the Friday before that will be, the letter will be on our website drafted. You can contact me, I can send you a list of that.
Do you want us to attend that, I mean?
It's not necessary, you're more than welcome to do so, but you're not
Yeah.
expected to present or talk, it will be Rodney or Dolores' job to present on the decision of the committee. And then after that, it'll be sent to CM.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
All right.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you all very much. Yeah, any questions, not just limited to our own business, but cannabis in general, we're happy to.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Take care.
Take care.
I'm happy to talk about the two postponed things if you would like me to, but I'm also, if you want to just jump to get out of here, general budget stuff, I mean.
Okay, the two other things on the item were postponed.
All right, that's great.
Would you say
That's accurate.
Did you say that Dolores is the most effective you've ever seen? Where's that Dolores? Who is Dolores? So yeah, I don't, should we make an announcement to the folks just to make?
Yeah, sure. So anybody that's on from the public, just to be clear, we had sent a revised agenda out yesterday. Because the other two applications that were coming before us, which was the 229 9th Avenue, New York Retail 1, and then the 510 West 27th Street. Sunshine operations are both postponed till next month. And so they will hopefully be coming back next month. For sure, the 229 will be. And so, you know, if anybody is here for those two, please feel free to contact me later directly if you have an opinion or a concern about them. But also feel free to come to November's meeting.
Okay. All right, thank you. Then what do we want to say about the budget?
So yeah, I just wanted to put that on there because you guys you did put a budget request in last year. And I can bring it up real quickly if you guys don't remember it. And so I just wanted to find it.
We probably don't need it this year, right? Because we were trying to say, let's get it out, do better explaining, clarification.
It's completely up to you guys. Let me just pull this up. I'm sorry. It's the expense.
Yeah, so we don't need to do it, you don't need to do it.
When I run meetings, I expect these to
We
be.
were gonna raise, it looks like this is already on the list of what we asked for last year, we probably just wanna make the same ads,
About getting more,
enforcement, yeah.
Yeah, so it was read as providing funding earmarked for cannabis enforcement to the city agencies. This is number 22, under expense, like the New York City Sheriff. Likewise, MCB4 believes that further coordination is needed between the city and state agencies. Funding for city and state agency coordination would be welcomed.
Yeah,
So,
this is basically, I think we wanna say the same thing, it has gotten better, I don't wanna.
Yeah.
They really have like noticeably less, but keep doing that and.
so we,
more.
yeah, I mean, you know, it didn't really have a home, so we put it under other expense request and we put it under Mayor's Office of Management and Budget. So we can continue with that.
But is there a sheriff's office department?
Not in the drop down that we had. That's why it'd be another.
The truck, okay.
Yeah, it's really limited to city agencies. So I mean, we could certainly just put it vaguely, but it's not as though the sheriff's office would ever see this document unless we like get it and then send it to them directly, but there's no mandate for them to respond, even though obviously the response that we got was not particularly insightful. But I will say, I think we were kind of splitting the baby here because it was a little bit of a half budget, half policy, political, because coordination doesn't really require budget.
Yeah.
You know, so, I mean, if you're all happy with the same language, we can continue it.
Maybe we can
That's
work
fine.
it into the narrative, isn't there a safety narrative, like a,
And well, in the narrative, there's cannabis,
You should call it.
I will say that, that's true, Alan, that if, with the budget task force is meeting next week. I think the narrative has cannabis in there a lot, because last year we were in a very different place. So I think though, if someone wants to take the lead and take a look at that and just make sure that we are comfortable with how we describe the cannabis environment. You know, and if we want to update that narrative, because that's what the budget task force does, they're the ones that really update the narrative of the statement of district needs. I do think that would be helpful.
Yeah.
Okay, as the chair, this evening, I'm gonna ask Alan, and help out with that, Alan. As my lieutenant, I'm gonna call on you to stretch.
You can call anytime.
Will you pick up?
Just to be clear, Tuesday is the budget task force, so if any changes need to be suggested, take a look at it. I just did a quick word search from the statement of district meeting. You can find it pretty easily. We mentioned it like 11 times in the narrative. So mostly under public safety and stuff like that, so.
But yeah, we should definitely mention, I actually do wanna keep this budget request, but in the narrative, we should mention that there has been improvements.
Okay,
Okay.
I think it would be.
Can you make a
It would be
motion?
just unreasonable to write it as if nothing had.
I make a motion that Sanford take the lead.
I can look
You
at the
make-
statement of district.
Yeah.
That's no problem.
Can you make the motion for both things, to keeping the budget request and then?
Okay, yeah, motion to, keep last year's budget requests to the Office of Management and Budget, for lack of a better idea. And to revise the statement of district needs to reflect, cannabis enforcement is still important to us. But we have noticed the improvement over the past year and we commend that, so,
sort of the improvement first, then hit him with the, get more.
of course, optimum sandwich.
Do we have a second?
Second.
There we go. Vote. All right, there we go. I'm gonna stop sharing at this point. You still do have 6 people on it. I'm not sure if anybody has anything to say.
Want to ask them if they have any?
If you would like me to.
Yes.
Okay. Does anybody online, who remains online from the public,
Online and introduce themselves, where they live.
are you asking to ask them if you just talk? Do you wanna do it? If anybody online has anything to raise, feel free to raise your virtual hand. I can bring you over. Going once, going twice. All righty.
All right, thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Everyone have a good,
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
I just wanna ask before we adjourn, do we wanna like make any comment on the legislative mess, which was, I learned about today, I don't know if you guys all knew about that, but it does seem like this is something that we as a Manhattan Community Board probably would be fair to opine on, and that the issue is that these rules that were written actually to require some of the suburban counties to be less restrictive are prohibitively restrictive on, like, it's just not possible to find a site in many neighborhoods if you measure with the new rules. And what, like, there's a good avenue, I think, to talk about, like, okay, those rules seem unworkable, like they would make many of the existing applicants, many of the existing sites that have already been approved invalid. That would make it virtually impossible on new ones. Okay, it's probably not gonna work, but like, what do we think should be the case? I mean, I would say personally, I think door to door makes more sense, like with the tiny storefronts in the large New York buildings. Doesn't make sense to say, well, the property is huge, but the other side of the property is functionally like another world. So that would be one thing I would probably comment on, but I was wondering if we wanna have, like, make any statement before the legislature convenes in January.
I would suggest, since we have, good relationship with our state legislators, to maybe want to invite one of them for the next meeting.
Oh, nice.
And ask them what's going on, and then ask them their opinion, and then, but I think in the meantime, if there are. If there are points that you wanna,
Yeah.
that you would want to bring to the task force to consider. I think, we've certainly recommend, the task force has written letters on recommending before the rules were in place. So we certainly have done that. We've made policy recommendations in the past, and so I think we would, I think if you, provide a sort of an outline or something to
Yeah, I mean, I
consider for next month.
I
think
can
that
do
might
some
be
research
helpful.
before next month,
Right,
that came to
yeah.
my attention today, so. I
Right,
can do
yeah,
some research before, and if we have Tony Simone or someone from.
yeah, Tony or Brad, I mean,
Very helpful.
or their chiefs of staffs or their policy people on this. Brad has certainly been bringing people, you've had Brad's policy person come,
Yeah, I'm not just-
not for this, but for other
Yeah,
agencies.
yeah.
I think would be a good person.
Who?
Man, Tony's chief, so.
Oh, yeah, Matt Todd?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure, we can see if we can get Matt Todd. Yeah, I think that's.
Okay, yeah, I'll try and do some research for next, sentence.
Okay.
Yeah, so,
I mean, and this would be prepared if 29229 does come to us next month, that's gonna be big.
Yeah,
Just so you.
you're right.
You live across the street from a church though, right? Isn't it a church across the
Well,
street?
the Greek church is down the block.
Oh, it's down.
It's on the other side of Ninth,
Just,
just past Shoe Craig.
okay.
That place, any time after 5 o'clock, they're like waiting they're like pouring into the roadway.
Oh, wow.
Amazing. Anyway,
All right.
at least they keep their sidewalk cafe in line.
Alright, I will reinvigorate my motion.
All right, folks.
Thank you.
alright.
Thank you.